Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. I'm Abram Kielsmeyer-Jones, and this is Study Bibles in Accordance. I'll be with you for the next hour or so as we look at study Bibles in accordance, in particular, how they function in accordance, and then how you can get the most out of them. We're also going to spend some time surveying various study Bible modules available. I've got a few to show, and all throughout, I welcome comments or questions from you. There is a questions section in the Go-To webinar control panel where you can type in questions. That's like a one-way type chat, and I will read them and either respond privately or anonymously share your question with the group and then respond with everyone. There is a handout as well in the handouts section. So go to your Go-To webinar control panel. That's what you see as soon as you log in. Go to handouts, make sure the arrow is pointing down, the little triangle next to the handouts, and then you'll see this handout, one page. If you're watching this on a recording afterwards, you can email me, abramkj@accordancebible.com for the recording, and I will be happy to, I'm sorry, for the handout, and I'll be happy to send it to you. And we are recording today, so you will get access to that. If you're here live, you'll get a link to the recording later that you can watch, and then that will be posted to our webinars page as well, which you can find in the help menu here, help webinars. All right, with that said, all that introduction and a little bit of housekeeping, let's move into looking at study Bibles in accordance. The first thing to talk about is how study Bibles function in accordance. And that will help us understand how to get the most out of them. Well, think about in print. You buy a study Bible as one product typically. You'll have the full Bible text. You'll have study notes that are kind of a running commentary, organized by book, chapter, and verse. You'll have introductory articles, so you'll get maybe a page or two introduction on each book, but then you might also get an article on the whole Old Testament or the New Testament. You'll probably also get introductory articles on things like how was the Bible created, what's in the canon, those books that are accepted as quote unquote scripture or Bible, and even how that differs across traditions. So a study Bible will have all of that, maybe an index, it may be a dictionary at the back, all is one product. So when you say study Bible, bring your study Bible to the group meeting, it's just one book that you're pulling off of the shelf. In accordance, it's a little different from that. Accordance produces a study Bible module that is separate from the Bible text itself. So when you buy a study Bible in Accordance, you're really buying everything but the Bible text itself. So you'll get the notes, you'll get the articles, you'll get the verse by verse, and I'll show you what this looks like in Accordance. If I go, for example, to the New Living Translation study Bible, you can see here that I'm opening it up and I'm just getting comments on different chapters and verses. I'm not getting an actual Bible here. If I want the New Living Translation, that's a separate module that's available here. Let's go to the store and just check this out and see how it's listed. Go to a web browser that's set to accordancebible.com. Let me just type in New Living Translation, Study Bible. And you'll see that it's sold, and they do a good job of naming this, New Living Translation Study Bible Notes. And then if you want the translation itself, it's separate. So Accordance separates them out. And again, it's named here. You're just buying the Study Bible Notes. And in fact, there's a note here. The text of this study Bible is not included in this module. You can purchase it separately. So it's important to know that about study Bibles in Accordance, that it separates out the notes as its own module from the actual text. In print, it's different. If you get the NLT study Bible, you get the NLT and all the study Bible notes. If you get the NIV study Bible, you get the full text of the NIV and all the NIV study Bible notes. Why? does Accordance do it that way? And the answer is so that you can use any study Bible in parallel with any text or translation. So let's say, and I know people will have different opinions or experiences with translation, so just making this up. Let's say you love the NIV translation and you love the New Living Translation study Bible notes, but you don't necessarily love the New Living Translation, so you want to mix and match. Well, you can do that in Accordance. I can go to the NIV, I can open that up, so just open that from the library, and now under Add Parallel, I can open up my New Living Translation study Bible. We'll go through these steps again, but notice now that what I've got is the NIV text, or it could be any text, could be the Greek text for that matter. And I've got the study Bible notes running in parallel here. So what appears to be a limitation, or could, I mean, you could understand it as a limitation in the sense that you don't have the text and the study Bible notes all together. It actually opens up more possibilities that you just don't have in print. In print, you've got one edition, how the publisher decides to design it and print it, and then you buy it, and then that's it. It's static. In Accordance, it's more dynamic because you can mix and match any Bible text with any study Bible notes. And so knowing that in advance is helpful. So in other words, if you want to buy the Accordance equivalent of your print edition of the New Living Translation Study Bible, you would need to have both the Study Bible notes and the New Living Translation separately. And again, that's all noted in the product page. And I spend the time on that now just so that we understand how study Bibles function. And then we're going to spend more time in just a moment here going through this process of opening up a parallel pane or using the info pane and looking at how we can really maximize study Bibles in Accordance. But that's the first thing to know, is that in print, a study Bible, typically it's one product. You get everything all between the two covers. In Accordance, study Bible modules separate out the notes and articles and everything, basically everything but the text, and then you get the text separately. Bible texts in Accordance tend to not be very expensive, anywhere from free to $15 or something like that. Study Bibles tend to cost more, both in print and then also in Accordance. But we'll see as we move on that there's a lot you can do in Accordance that you can't necessarily do in print. So let me just stop there and see if you've got any questions, any clarifications needed there. If you go, I mean, really the place to start on this, I think, is if you go to File, New tab, Web Browser. I'm just opening this up in Store. And even if you just search Study Bible in Accordance in the store, you'll see, same here, Andrews University Study Bible Notes. And it will say the same thing on the product page, Study Notes. And then here, note, while the printed version of the Study Bible contains the text of the New King James, this one does not, but it's got everything else. So that's noted pretty clearly on the product page. There may be some bundles where you can get everything all together, but just read the product page carefully. And if you've got questions, you can always ask on the forums. Yeah, typically, like this one looks like it's bundled, but typically these are sold as standalone notes. And then you know, if you see something that says, oh, it's got the text too, just pay attention to that, and then it will give you both in one. In fact, that's the case here, so just watch for that. So what that means is if you're interested in, say, the Andrews Study Bible, I would type in Andrews Study Bible and just look here. You've got Study Bible Notes, that's $30. Study Bible Notes with the text, that's $40. That's probably a cost savings, so you can consider that. All right, let me know if you've got questions or comments. You can type them into the questions box. Let's talk about getting the most out of study Bibles in Accordance. So let's say you've got at least one in your library, maybe more. We're going to talk about 3 ways to get the most out of study Bibles in Accordance. And just to briefly preview that, the first way is what we would be doing in print, which is studying a given Bible passage at a time, and using a study Bible to shed light on the text. So we'll do that first. Then we'll talk about opening a study Bible on its own. So apart from a text, how do you navigate everything that's in that study Bible? So we'll use the NLT study Bible for that. And then finally, we're going to use the research feature to search all study Bibles at once. And now this is where Accordance really supercharges what you can do. And it just, obviously, print, this would take a long time. But if you've got 5 study Bibles and you want to see what do they all say about this passage, or where does this word occur across my study Bibles, you can do a research search. So we'll look at that third. But before that, let's look at studying a given Bible passage. So there are a couple ways to do this, and I opened that up already. But let's take a Bible text. And I was last in this passage last time I was in the NIV, so let's stay with this one. But someone will ask, Paul writes, how are the dead raised? With what kind of body will they come? How foolish, what you sow does not come to life unless it dies, and so on. There are 2 ways to think about getting into your study Bibles. The one is to add a parallel pane, and that was what I did quickly just a moment ago. So I'm going to go to add parallel, and that gives me some options here. It will give you your recent modules, and I just had the New Living Translation Study Bible open, so I can go to that, and it will line up the verses to my text. Notice that there's a bit of versification. I mean, it's a little funny here in the sense that the New Living Translation, it has a comment on this whole passage, 35 through 58, and that's great, actually. I would want to read that before I go through the passage, or as I go through the passage. And then it has a comment on verse 36, and then it treats 37, 38, and 39 together, and so on. So you'll see different groupings, and different study Bibles will do this differently, but it's not unusual to get a grouping or to have some verses where there's not a comment. As you advance your Bible text at left, the study Bible notes at right automatically follow you. So the top verse here, I'm in 37, so I'm just scrolling up slowly on my trackpad. 38, notice these study Bible notes didn't advance, and that's as it should be because I'm still in this part. But when I get up to verse 40, watch, it's going to go up to 40 to 41, and that will continue. Now this works in reverse. If I'm reading through my study Bible notes and scrolling up and down, the text at left follows me because they are tied together. You can, by the way, untie this scrolling. It happens when you go to add parallel and go to a recent module, or you could go to another way to get at this is under reference tools, study Bibles. These are all of my study Bibles that are installed in my library. So we went to add parallel, we did recent modules before, but you can also go to reference tools, study Bibles, and then pick your study Bible. But it will scroll in tandem, but you can also untie that scrolling. And I sometimes will do that if I've got a study Bible where there's not a one-to-one correspondence with the verse. You can see that here. Like there's 45, but there's no comment on 46, and some of these are grouped together. So when I'm scrolling through the study Bible, it really makes the text kind of not skip around. Well, it does skip around, but it's following the study Bible. But under the gear icon here, you can untie the scrolling so that now I can scroll up and down through the study Bible and notice that my text at left is not following it. So Accordance lets me choose how I want to do that. And I may do that if I'm reading through this passage the first time. I may just kind of quickly go ahead and see everything that's in this passage on the study Bible, but not necessarily want my text to advance. So that's up to you. And then you can tie it back when you're done. And then as you see, scrolling up and down on either pane will make the other corresponding pane follow you. This is true if you have multiple study Bibles open. So let's go to add parallel again. Let's go to reference tools. Let's open up another study Bible. Let's take the Wesley Study Bible. And you can see here, really, the versification is just vastly different. In this study Bible, and I'm just going to scroll up here, you've got a little article, or, well, a core term that's inserted here. But this one's got, it gives you all of chapter 15, but then it treats 1 through 11 as one note, 12 through 34 as another, and so on. So the same thing I said about the tying and the scrolling, it's going to happen. There's more variables now. So again, you may just wish to untie some of the scrolling here, or maybe you keep these two texts, the text and notes, tied together, but untie the Wesley Study Bible. Maybe I don't want that to advance my text because these are such long passages covered by each note. But that's under the gear icon, tie and untie. And you can add as many, add parallel reference tools, study Bibles. You can add as many study Bibles as will fit on your screen. And typically it takes a lot before this gets filled up. So that's one way to think about studying, using a study Bible, is to study a given Bible passage with add parallel pane. And so I'm just adding study Bibles to my text, whatever text I'm studying, and then I can consider whether I want to untie these panes. Again, that's just a personal preference, but the gear icon will show, and you can do that separately on a tab by tab basis. But because these are tied together, I can also now, let's say I'm in 1 Corinthians and I want to leave this all here. Maybe I'm going to come back to that in a bit. Let me just advance quickly back to verse 58, or actually, well, yeah, here, let me just stay where I am right here. Let's say I want to kind of bracket this off for now and go study a resurrection account in the Gospels, and I want to do it in these same study Bibles. I'm going to right click my tab. I'm going to duplicate the tab. That will put the whole thing over here, but it will give me an empty search entry area. So notice I've got the NIV as my search text, and I've got these three same study Bibles over here. Now I duplicated the tab in the sense that I duplicated what was showing here, but I've got a blank search entry area. So now I can go to, say, Matthew 28, and I've got Matthew 28 now with my three study Bibles showing. And same thing, I can untie the text or not, I can read through it how I want to, and I've still got it over here with 1 Corinthians. So that's one way, is use the parallel pane, open up as many study Bibles as you've got, and you can study a given passage in that way. That gives you a pretty good degree of, I think, deliberation and control, because you're picking which study Bibles you want. But you could also save some time with having a Bible text open, going to add parallel, and instead of opening individual study Bible modules, go to your info pane, which has a whole section called Study Bibles, which is right here. I'm going to click that triangle so that they show. And now what I've got is all of my study Bibles, not just in a list that I can select, but I can just click them now, or even hover over them as I'm doing now. Notice the instant details. I'm getting the comments that are in each of the study Bibles. It's like an instantaneous look inside. And I can even show more if I've got more study Bibles. And it will do that on a verse by verse basis. So info pane, info for Matthew 28:1. Now, if I went back to 1 Corinthians 15, it would follow that and go to 1 Corinthians 15:1. But with the info pane, it's going to pull up all of my study Bibles that have a comment on a given verse. And it will do it in a way that is respecting the organizational scheme of that Bible. So here, the NLT Study Bible, that's got a comment just on verse 1. Wesley Study Bible, well, that's treated as 15:1 through 11. So that's all I'm going to get there. Watch when I go ahead to verse 2 here. Let's see what the Wesley Study Bible does. It still shows that. And that's because that's all that the Wesley Study Bible has. on 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 11. So that will show in my info pane for verse 2, 3, 4, all the way through verse 11. So Accordance is smart, even with all the different ways that study Bibles are organized compared to each other. It will pull it up to the right location in your info pane. Once again, that's add parallel, and right at the top, info pane. You also may have your toolbar showing, in which case that's just a click away right there. You can toggle that on and off. And by the way, these categories, you can rearrange them. So I just took study Bibles, I clicked on the category name, I held my click, I dragged it until I saw a drop shadow, and then I put it where that drop shadow is. So you may want to have your study Bibles up at the top. In fact, typically I do. I'll even have them before my commentaries because I like to get something more concise first before I go in depth with my commentaries. So they will show up here, all of your study Bibles, however you have them ordered in your library, and you can adjust that. Let me know if you've got questions about that. But they'll all show up here and it will follow you. Now you can not untie the scrolling here. But you can untie the scrolling once you open these. So that's going to be an option as well. So I mentioned hovering over these, but you can also click. So I'm going to click on this, and that opens it up in a parallel pane, which I can untie if I want. I can also hold down Command or Control if you're on Windows and click. And notice the same content. So here I've got the note for 15.3. Here I've got the note for 15.3. Same thing in my instant details. It's all the same content, just multiple ways you can access it. Here it opens it up in a new zone. And you may wish to do that if you don't even want to think about the tying, although you can tie it here too, but you may just wish to have it in a separate zone. I prefer personally to keep this zone just my Bibles and this zone just my secondary sources. So what I'm more likely to do, so this is a great setup. Personally, I'm more likely to have a setup where I command click on a few of these or control click on Windows, and then I might even close my info pane and just keep my Bible text here, but I've got different tabs here of different study Bibles that I can access very quickly and read through what multiple study Bibles have to say about a verse or a passage. So that's the first use case that I think of when it comes to getting the most out of study Bibles in Accordance. It's studying a given Bible passage. And we looked at adding a parallel pane and opening a particular study Bible, which you can of course do, but info pane is a faster way to do that, and that will give you all of your study Bibles. And you could leave this info pane open or not, but either way, it shows you what you have. It opens it to that verse. You can hover over it to see it in instant details. You can click it to get it in this zone. You can command click or control click to get it in a separate zone. You can even hover over it and then click and hold your click to get the full article there. Notice this is a lengthy article that does not all fit in my instant details. I can click and hold, and then I get the little scroll bar there. And so you can see you've got a much longer comment here on verses 3 through 7. And it's because this is the Apologetics Study Bible, and there's something of great importance for apologetics as they read it in these verses. So you get more there. So that's the first use case. What questions do you have about that, if any? And then we'll plan to move on to looking at a study Bible on its own. That's the second use case. The first one being how we would use it in print. You're reading through a Bible text and you want the study Bible notes there, verse by verse. What questions or comments do you have? Let's look at opening a study Bible as its own module in a zone. And we did that already from a Bible text. And you can do that from your library too. You can open it right here and it will put it open in a separate zone. But let's just stay with this setup for a moment. Let's say, for example, that I want to still study this passage, but I am interested enough in what the study Bible's got here that I might also want to look at some of the articles that are in there about different things. Unlike having it open as a parallel tab or a parallel pane here, when it's open as its own separate tab in a zone, you can access the table of contents. So here is where now I move, let me just close this. I move now from looking at my study Bible verse by verse like this, no table of contents, to opening it as its own separate module, in which case now, same content, but let me just close this for now. Now I've also got access to the full table of contents, and I'm just dragging this line over here to make that bigger. And you can see here it's organized, of course, by book of the Bible, but now I can see there's much more than that. For example, there's this New Living Translation harmony of the four Gospels. And that's a super useful chart if you're trying to make sense of how the different gospel accounts relate to each other. This is in the study Bible, and it's greatly enhanced compared to what's in print, because here I get hyperlinked references. So when I see here, for example, the preface to Luke's gospel, obviously that's a standalone, but I can hover over that and see in the instant details. So I can very quickly compare, like if I want to look at this John the Baptist here, number 23, John the Baptist prepares the way for Jesus. I can quickly hover over all of those and see them in the instant details. So I'm just getting much more out of the study Bible already than I could in print. And that's just a little bit of browsing. Maybe I go up to this article, a chronology of the life of Jesus. Again, with the hyperlinks and everything is here. I can read through this article, and it's going to take me beyond just the verse by verse comment. You know, maybe they don't. I mean, you could have had a super lengthy article attached to Matthew 2 or Luke 1, but they separate those out as study Bibles do. And when you open it from your library as its own separate module, you can access what's here in the table of contents and just browse through here and see what's here. There's some, especially this one, and this is why I use the New Living Translation for today's webinar. There are some great articles here. Even introduction to the time after the apostles. I mean, we're getting outside now of the timeline of the Bible per se, but it is telling us, well, how did we get this Bible in the first place? And what went into that process? So any of your study Bibles that you've got, you can use them as the way that you would in print, you know, verse by verse, passage by passage. But it can be super helpful too to open it as its own module in a zone and see exactly what is there just by browsing. Now you can go further than browsing. You can search too. You can see what's in there. So maybe, I mean, this is a lot to browse, admittedly. So maybe I come to this and I say, all right, I want to look at what does this study Bible say about the process of canonization? That is the process of coming up with the biblical canon. What books are we going to call Bible and what books are we not going to call Bible? So I can browse for that, of course, but I can also go to my search entry area and explore the different search fields here. I'm going to go to titles and just see, are there any articles or whatever that have canon or canonization in the title? And so it's doing a quick entry here. I'm going to do an asterisk to get both of those, both canon and canonization. And now when I hit enter, I've got 5 hits. So here's the canon of the Old Testament. I might not have even thought about that. I might have just been thinking so much about the New Testament, it didn't even occur to me to browse back here. But I can see it's in this introduction article, the canon of the Old Testament. Why is the order of books different in a Hebrew version of the Hebrew Bible than it is in the English translation of the Hebrew Bible? Well, it will tell you here, and it will give you a chart. It will also talk about the Septuagint and how that differs as well. So that's just the first hit. Now I can navigate down by hit, and here's the canon of the New Testament. So again, I might have missed that because it was not in this later section on canon, but very similar. How is it organized? How did we get it? And then advance by hit again, and then here are more articles. Now, this does not mean the word canon only occurs 5 times in the New Living Translation Study Bible. It means that it occurs 5 times in a title. I'm telling Accordance what search field I want it to do. Accordance codes these headlines or these titles as titles so that you can search just the titles, but you could also search all English and look at the word canon or canonization. That asterisk is a wild card that means search everything that begins C-A-N-O-N. Now I've got 76 hits, so I could navigate through that, and what I'll see here is just not only the headings, but where it's mentioned elsewhere. And in all of this, I mean, this is hyperlinked well so that you can get right to an article if it's linked there. I mean, you could easily spend the greater part of a day just with these introductory articles, more than a day. And this is a pretty robust study Bible. Even study Bibles that aren't as comprehensive as the New Living Translation will have introductory articles. And I think a good way to get at that information is, yes, browsing, and also searching by titles or by all English, whatever you choose to do, and navigating through the search results that come up when you search something like canon, or maybe you want to see all the chronologies that they have. So I've got 9 hits where title has chronology, so chronology articles. But here's the chronology of Abraham to Joshua. Again, where would you put that in your book, chapter, verse study Bible? You might have some notes, hopefully you do, but this really allows you to back out in a way that this doesn't quite fit with any one verse because it spans more than one verse, but it's super useful if you're reading through the whole of the Old Testament. It would be helpful to know when exactly is all of this. So that's another search you might try. Let me pause there just to see if you've got comments or questions. We're not quite done on the second use case, but I'll give you a chance just to let this digest, or if you've got comments or questions, I'd be happy to take those. Oh, interesting. Here's a comment, and let me just put this in the chat so that you can see what I'm responding to, and I'll read it out loud. Somebody says, I was able to leave the search token as reference and then tab over to the search index field and type in canon. That's interesting. Accordance is sometimes, yeah, let's see. I wonder what happened there. Sometimes Accordance can it can basically fix the search field for you. It will do that if you're searching a Bible text and searching words or verses, and it can tell the difference. But yeah, that's interesting. Let me know if I'm missing something in your comment. So we're looking at introductory articles. Of course, there are book intros as well, and a really easy way to get at that, you can just browse here and go right to the book, but you can also go to titles and go to Exodus, or let's skip ahead and do Ruth. I might have to navigate a few other titles, but here we are. So again, these study Bibles, I mean, you're going to get all kinds of stuff. Here's a summary, authorship and date, meaning and message, and then you move into the book. Now, what's interesting too is that in this particular study Bible, and your study Bibles will vary, but this particular one has an outline in the introduction, and the way that some of these study Bibles are set up, you see it actually in the notes themselves. So look at this. I've got in the New Living Translation Study Bible a list. This is my outline of Ruth right here, and it fits on one screen. Ruth is not a long book, but it also organizes the study notes, the ones that go by chapter and verse. It organizes them by that same outline. So prologue, Elimelech moves his family to Moab, and here that is. Now I could expand that out and see here are the different verses. And same with these other headings. And so I could skip ahead to any of them. So that's another kind of neat feature, is to think about the book intros, but also the outlines of a given book, the contents themselves. And this varies from study Bible to study Bible, but generally speaking, you will see accordance match not just chapter and verse, but it will also import whatever outline is there for the study Bible. In general, there may be exceptions, but typically speaking, you'll see in the table of contents. Now here, I guess in this one, you just get it by chapter and verse. So that may not always be the case, but it is in the New Living Translation Study Bible. You might just check your other study Bibles and see. This is why I like the New Living Translation Study Bible, because not only is it thorough, but it's got the outline actually coded into the contents here, which I think is kind of neat. All right, one other thing, and we're still on the second use case of opening a study Bible as its own module. You've got all the end matter too. And I would just browse ahead to this. Reference helps in this case, the New Living Translation. You've got a Bible reading plan. You've got maps, and you can zoom in and out and do various things with these. You might also consider, and again, this just varies from study Bible to study Bible, but like the Life Application Study Bible has a dictionary in the back, or index to personality profiles, which is interesting. So here's Aaron. Let's click on that and see where it goes. It goes to a profile here. So that's some end matter. We've got, that's kind of interesting. It's like all the people of the Bible. So that's some good end matter that you might browse your way through. But the dictionary was back there as well. Again, different modules work differently. If I search my library for Life Application Study Bible, that is one module. In some cases, and I don't know exactly why this is, but in some cases, like in the New Living Translation, the dictionary is separated out. Now this means, I mean, this is good in terms of flexibility. I don't know why it's not separated in Life Application, but in the New Living Study Bible Dictionary now, this will come up when you search all of your dictionaries in your library. So it actually separates this out into multiple modules. It made the cross references separate so that you can use that in conjunction with other things. Different study Bibles will do this differently. So again, I would just, if you're looking for, let's say you just got the ESV Study Bible in your library, you can see here that it has the study Bible here and the study Bible reading plan as a separate module. New Living Translation, cross references and dictionary are separated out. All you have to do is the product page will generally tell you, and then once you've got a study Bible in your library, just search that and you'll see, all right, this is all one module, so I can find everything here. And I can't, again, not being a developer, I can't speak to exactly why some of these vary, but part of it is the nature of the study Bible itself. So that's opening a study Bible as its own module in a zone. And you can even do both at once. So if our first use was passage by passage, verse by verse, and our second use was let's just look at all the other content, you can do both at once. So I can go back to, let's open up a Bible text here. I can go back to 1 Corinthians 15. I can add a parallel. I can open up my New Living Translation Study Bible. There it is in parallel with my Bible text. And I can open up my Study Bible as its own separate module over here. So maybe at the same time as I'm looking at 1 Corinthians 15 with the Study Bible here, maybe at the same time, I'm going to read the book introduction about 1 Corinthians. So Accordance gives you flexibility. You can open up, in fact, you could duplicate this tab and you could have the study Bible, the same one study Bible, open here with parallel verses, open here to do a book intro, and open here to search all English content for the word resurrection. Maybe you want to see all the times the study Bible talks about resurrection. So it's not like, you know, a lot of e-readers, you can really only have a book open once. But here, and you see here, Accordance is naming it NLT Study Bible, NLT Study Bible 2. Here it is open as with that first use case as a parallel pane and as a module in its own zone, and you're doing it all at the same time. And you could just continue to duplicate these tabs and get in and out of this same one study Bible. We'll move next to the research feature, but let me stop there again and see if you've got questions or comments. Yeah, here's a comment. I'll put this in the chat. Somebody says separation out of these study Bibles is also dependent on how the publisher provides the content. That's a great point, and what they allow Accordance to do with that content. Yep. Yeah. So I guess the moral of the story is just understand how the particular study Bible you have is set up. And again, the product page, if you don't have it yet, and then once you do, just searching your library, it will show up how it is. And so you just want to know, if you've got the New Living Translation, you actually have 3 modules in the one study Bible. So being aware of that. Thanks for that comment. Oh, interesting. All right, here's a clarification of the previous question. Somebody says, I was suggesting to leave the reference token field blank and then click into the table of contents search field and then type the word canon. Got it. Yes, it seems to list the titles mentioned, including canonization. That's right. So it's a little bit redundant here that I could search titles for canon, but I can see here, this is also search titles. Thanks for that clarification. So, and it's just a built-in redundancy, which is nice, I guess. But I'm searching the word canon here, and it's, as it tells me here, it says search titles because I'm searching the contents. Which is the same thing as titles in this case. And here, actually, as I'm starting to type, this is kind of cool. It's a unique kind of quick entry. Here I've got a quick entry happening, but here it's actually showing me the results like in real time. So now when I hit enter, it just shows me anything with canon in the titles here from the sidebar. Now it doesn't highlight them in bold and red, but yeah, as you pointed out, it does pick up the word canonization, partly because it's picking up every word that starts with C-A-N-O-N. If I type in canonization, I'll just get that one. Great. Yeah, thanks for that clarification. Often with Accordance, and I probably say this every other webinar, there are often multiple ways to do the same one thing. And that's usually usually that's just greater flexibility for the user, and you know, find whatever works for you, or in my case, what I can remember to do. If you use Accordance long enough, you'll learn and forget and relearn lots of things, just because there are lots of different features and ways to access different things. But yeah, that's a good reminder. Yeah, you can search the titles here as well. Thank you for that. All right, let's talk about the research feature. So we talked about info pane, and so that's if I am looking at a verse and I want to see all of my study Bibles all at once on a particular passage. In a similar way, you know, if this is kind of the souped up version of a single study Bible in parallel, we opened up a study Bible as its own separate module, and the souped up version of that is if I do a research search. And I can search anything. So we did canon, we did resurrection, we did chronology. I can go to my this drop down field here, and if I'm not sure what anything is, you can just hover over it, select the group of modules to search. Well, I've got a lot of different ways I can search stuff and a lot of different things. I want to search all of my study Bibles. And now I just need to tell it what to search. It's a little different, the search fields are a little different here. But I'm going to type in, let's type in canon, and let's do it with the asterisk so we get canon, canonization. And very quickly, it searched all of my study Bibles for that word. Now let's look at the results. I'm going to drag this over so I can see this a little bit better. That does not want to drag. There we go. So now it actually uses those other search fields. Remember titles versus all English? Remember how we were doing that before? That didn't show up in these search fields, but now it does because it's searching the New Living Study Bible for canon in the titles, 5 hits. That was what we had before. And I can even open that from here, and there it is. This is the same search we did before, same exact search. But now it's doing it all throughout all of my study Bibles, and it searched not only the titles, but notice right under here, I get the New Living Study Bible again. That's not a duplicate search, that's a different search. That's searching all English. So I have the titles and all the times the word canon occurs in the content of what's underneath the titles. And then it goes to the Orthodox Study Bible, just one there. So I've got just a description there and all English, and then it goes to the Catholic Study Bible Reading Guide. So that looks like one where it's separated out. The reading guide is separated out from the study Bible, but here's the study Bible itself. And without having to navigate or browse, I'm right at the same kind of article that I want here, forming a Bible, quote unquote, from diverse books, the story of the canon. Now, interestingly, you have here as your top 3 hit results, the New Living Translation Study Bible, the Orthodox Study Bible, and the Catholic Study Bible. And even between those 3, you will have differences in what makes up the canon, and they will explain it to us, which is great. So this is the research search. Once again, we opened up the new tab. I'll just do that one more time. File, new tab, research. I think it's higher up in the menu on Accordance 14. I'm just on Accordance 13. You could also go in your toolbar, make sure that your research is showing. If it's not showing, I right-clicked, and let me know if I'm doing anything too fast. I can slow it down, but right-click, customize toolbar, and you can just drag something into the toolbar. And then I've got my research search there. Now, this is kind of a condensed version of that full window I just had open. I'm going to search English, but now I'm going to go to Study Bibles down here, and I'm going to type in, let's do another word, chronology, hit enter, and now it opens up the research window. It runs the searches, and same thing here. I've got New Living Translation Study Bible, titles, and then all English, and then on down through all of my study Bibles. So there's no shortage of information about chronologies in my Accordance library. There are some things about this research panel that you can customize. Probably the most efficient thing to say is if you go to help and webinars, you'll be taken to all of our recordings. Mine are in the Western Hemisphere friendly webinars, and you'll find there, in fact, here's us right now live. You'll have to scroll down a bit, but you'll find a webinar on the research panel where we talk about this more. But in short, you can change how your results are showing. So right now I've got sort by library entry. So it's sort by library order, but it's prioritizing titles or entry first, which is why you'll see the New Living Translation showing up with titles and then all English. Again, that's in that webinar. You can ask questions now if you want to know more. But this research search is, I mean, it's incredible how quickly you can type a word or a theme, or for that matter, I mean, you've got the info pane for this, but you could also type in a verse and see all the times, or see what all of your study Bibles say for that given verse. And I notice I did the equal sign here. If you just do something like John 3:16, it will give you ranges that include John 3:16. But if you put the equal sign there, that's saying, show me what all my study Bibles have to say about John 3:16. Again, you could have gotten that from going to John 3:16 in your preferred Bible text, add parallel, info pane, study Bibles, But this is just another way to do the same thing. Maybe you want to see it as a list, or maybe you're not actually in a text at the moment and you just wonder to yourself, let me get a sense of the 5 study Bibles I have in my library. How do they treat this given verse? Maybe you've got a sample verse in mind. A good one is Romans 5. Let's see, what's the one I'm looking for? Yeah, there's some good verses in Romans 5 that have some interpretive challenges that have to do with the Greek in particular. And so maybe you've got something in mind, or maybe there's a verse about the so-called free will versus predestination discussion, and you've got a particular verse in mind, and you want to see across my study Bibles, how do they treat that verse? You can use this research search to search by verses too, which I think is pretty cool. All right, I'm going to stop there, and we'll spend the rest of the time. We've kind of gotten to know the New Living Translation Study Bible a little bit, but we'll spend the rest of the time on a couple other Study Bible modules. And I would love to, at any point, including now, if you've got questions about particular study Bibles, I'll do my best to answer them. I haven't used all of them, but I've used many of them. So if you've got comments or questions, I'd love to hear them. But I appreciate having a variety of study Bibles just to get a variety of perspectives. And even the New Living Translation and the Life Application Study Bible are a good example of how these have a different focus. If you go to the study Bible as a separate module and go way up to the beginning, you'll get a good introduction in each one that will say something like, here's our approach, here are our features, here's our focus, here's something about our contributors. Typically speaking, you're going to have some kind of view of scripture, that kind of thing. That will all be in the introductions to any of your study Bibles, and you can find those typically too on the product pages if you don't own a thing yet. The New Living Translation Study Bible, I think, is a great one-stop shop because it really does do the historical background, the literary context, thinking through, at an academic level, but also how might this relate to today. But the Life Application Study Bible, as the name suggests, is even more, life application oriented. So that would be a perspective that I would consider. And we can even just see here, John 3:16, you're going to get not just like, what does it mean that God gave his son and his only son, and what are the theological questions that come up with that? It will talk about how that applies to people reading this right now. And so we get a line like, when we share the good news with others, our love must be like Jesus's, willingly giving up our own comfort and security so that others might join us in receiving God's love. So this is sort of like, how would you understand this for you? Not just how does John describe this? What does that mean for John's original audience, which you might get more in another study Bible, but this one, as the name suggests, is more life application oriented. So that's one that I like to have, and a lot of that's because I personally just want to know how to apply this, and also I'm a pastor, and so I'm thinking about how do I help these applications come alive, both for myself and for the congregation that I serve. Another study Bible that I have enjoyed is the Jewish Study Bible. That, of course, will cover only, it wouldn't call it the Old Testament, it would call it the Hebrew Bible. And you'll see even here, you've got the book ordered to match, and you'll have that probably commented on in the introduction. But this is a study Bible I find myself drawing on quite often, because if I go, for example, to Exodus 20, I'm going to get some background here that I may not get elsewhere. If you just go to the preface here, it will tell you what it's about. But it is coming from a more specifically Jewish standpoint in terms of biblical interpretation. And here, which even to talk about that is problematic, which it notes here, if anything marks quote unquote Jewish biblical interpretation, it is the diversity of approaches employed and the multiplicity of meanings produced. And and that they're describing as distinctly Jewish. You could also see that as being Christian. I mean, if we were to say, what is a Christian interpretation of the Bible, you might say, well, it depends on which Christian. And that's true here as well. That said, you are going to get an approach that will be different from Christian traditions, not least of which would be some of these so-called messianic passages and how might those be read. So I find the Jewish Study Bible to be really helpful for getting a historical background that I might still get with the New Living Translation Study Bible, but it's got a little bit of a more specific focus. And so I find myself drawing on that. And then if you want a counterpart, the Jewish Annotated New Testament is a separate module, but that's going to actually cover the New Testament. And then we've seen in my library things like Wesley. So if you're coming from a Methodist or Wesleyan tradition, you'll have Wesley commenting on that throughout. The Apologetics Study Bible is another specific kind of study Bible. You'll have here a comment that might aid you in something like interreligious dialogue. So this is very different from how the Life Application Study Bible talks about John 3:16. It gives you an insight into Islam and what is claimed there in terms of sonship. Or it might not even be about other world religions. It might just be, did this resurrection physically actually happen? How can we know? So Accordance has no shortage of study Bibles. There are probably more, I'm sure someone's writing one right now as we speak somewhere. But those are just a few that I want to point out. I'd love to hear from you if you've got any that you appreciate and want to share, or if you've got any questions. I'll turn to the typed questions in just a moment, but just to say that you might spend some time going to the Accordance website and just search for study Bibles, and you'll get a sense there of the different offerings that are available. And there's quite a few and being added to on a pretty regular basis. So let me stop there. Just to recap, we talked about how study Bibles function in Accordance as their own separate modules, how to get the most out of them. We talked about number one, studying passage by passage. We talked number two about opening a study Bible as its own module. And number three, we talked about the research feature. And then finally, we did survey of a few Bible study modules. So let me see what questions or comments you all have as we think about wrapping up. Here's a comment, and I'll share this here. Somebody says the CSB and Holman Christian Standard Bible and ESV Study Bible have word studies. That's great. Yeah, thanks for that. Here's a great question that I will do my best to answer. It's in the chat. And the question is there a way to link the Jewish study Bibles of the NT with the OT? So when you go from the Old Testament to the New Testament reference, it will pull it up rather than two separate searches. Yeah, it's been a while since I've combined a module like that. So let me see if I can find my way to that. It would be under Add Parallel, Combined Resources, Manage Combined Resources. You'll notice here I've got some already. I don't know that you can. If somebody knows how to do this and I'm just missing it, because you can do it with commentaries, there may be a step I'm missing. I might have to get back to you about that. I feel like I've seen that done before. Let's see. Yeah, I might have to get back to you. How to do it is in the help file. All right, thank you, Bert. That's helpful. Yeah, so that's really the answer to any question that you don't know. It's in the Accordance help. So go to Combined Resources. I would go to that in your help files and this will walk you through it. Manually combine two resources. That's what we want. So yeah, again, I just searched combined resources in the help files, create a new combined text set. Everything that you need here, we'll show you how to do it. So I will just leave it at that because that will probably take a few minutes, but do feel free to follow up afterwards if you can't get that to work easily, and I can help you. Again, it's maybe some proof there that if you don't use it, you lose it. And I did that much more frequently before, and now I don't. And so I've clearly forgotten, but it's in the help files there. So yeah, thanks for that question. And that would be great to be able to do. Then you've got those two study Bibles following you wherever you go. Oh, great. Here's a comment. I'll just share this here as we wrap up. Someone says, I agree and enjoy having a variety of study Bibles. I also like the CBL, OT, and NT study Bibles, also the Ryrie study Bible. Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff, and some classics and some new stuff coming out all the time. So, all right, thanks so much, everyone. I'm gonna just end the recording, and then I'll stay on for just another moment. So if you are watching the recording, again, if you want the handout or have any comments or questions, you can email me at abramkj@accordancebible.com.